All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really exciting times right now with some light at the end of the tunnel and return to play on the horizon. So Paul and myself are certainly excited to get the ball rolling here and start the process forward. So there we are. So again, I'm sure everybody's aware, we're here to talk about the Provincial Summer Training Program. Again, Con and I are really excited to get this launched. We know we've got a lot of eager players and parents who are excited to get back into things. So we're going to roll through the presentation. This is the same overview that was shared with everybody on Friday and again today in the follow-up email. But we'll just go over it and dive into things in a little bit more detail just to provide some clarity. And then again, at the end, we'll go into a question and answer period. So just to start things off here, we have some survey results. Thank you to everybody who participated in our initial survey that was sent out about 3 weeks ago now. We've used a lot of the feedback and results from that survey to shape and form the program we're running now. A lot of really good feedback and a lot of really good concerns were brought up that helped us kind of walk through the process and really dial things in. So again, just an overview here. We had about 177 participants, which is awesome. Just under 50% of the total group that we sent it out to. And again, as you can see on the right-hand side there, really positive takeaways. So those percentages there and those breakdowns speak specifically to players and parents, that those don't include coaches and managers. So that speaks to the anticipated level of engagement of all the players and parents who responded. So again, very positive there. We're looking at about 80% of people likely or committed to returning. Which was great for us to see and a large reason why we launched this program so quickly. The other piece here in terms of why this program is so important to us to get off the ground and get into things, there's four main pillars here that we're really looking to address. First and foremost is the mental and social factor. Obviously, the onset of COVID-19 has created a lot of issues in a number of areas, but it's certainly created an isolated environment for a lot of people. And as we all know, through the power of sport, sport brings us together and it gives us an environment to be around our friends and engage with our friends and be a part of that community. So that's certainly something that we're going to highlight through this and look to reintegrate athletes into that social circle. As much as this is a high performance environment, that's obviously a really important element of the program that we run here. The second piece is obviously reintroducing athletes to the physical aspects of the sport. We understand that athletes have had a long layoff period and have had limited opportunity to engage in training and sports. So this is our opportunity to slowly ramp athletes back up and get them into shape where they can really start training hard and pushing to the next level. And some of those next opportunities we'll talk about at the end of the presentation. And then simply the last 2 points, the opportunity to develop non-skill related rugby concepts. So there's a ton of work that we can do with athletes in the limited environment that we have to start in developing those really important attitudes and mindsets around the game of rugby and the way that we're looking to play it. And then finally there, obviously working off the rust with our athletes, getting back into the technical aspects, working with athletes. The one thing that this environment does create is an opportunity for us to really, really break concepts down and get very, very technical with our delivery of skills. And we're really excited about that, building a really strong foundation with our athletes over this period of time so that when restrictions are further lifted and we're ready to go, we have a really, really strong foundation in place. That being said, Con, I'll turn it over to you to highlight the general overview.
So the way we've got this designed, we're going to be going on Sunday afternoons unless it's a long weekend, and then we'll go on the Monday similar to last year. 2 session times, 2 to 4 p.m., then an hour transition break, and then 5 to 7. Now, while it's a 2-minute or a 2-hour window, I'll have within the session breaks broken into that. So we will literally be training for 90 minutes when you include the breaks. Now, we were really excited to get started this Sunday. It looks like that's not going to be possible. So we're now going to have our first session on the Monday of the August long weekend. But you'll notice that we added an October 4th date in, and that just has to get confirmed with the town of Whitby, but we think that will come through. Our first session will be a phase 1 training session. We'll be in groups of 10, and I'll go over this a bit more in a few slides from now. one ball per person, no exchange of equipment. And we're really, really going to work on, at this first session, physical distancing. We're not going to be the sport that has issues. And I would really encourage you to get that across to your sons and daughters. Having said that, we will probably only do phase 1 training for the first session. And when we go into the second session, we'll go into phase 2, and I'll go into detail in that coming forward.
Perfect. So in terms of the overall process and logistics, as we walk through the session, we've tried to make it as simple and straightforward as possible, understanding that there are, like Con said, really heavy restrictions in place that we are going to be monitoring diligently. So speaking first and foremost here, it all begins before the session. So prior to attendance, we're going to ask all athletes to prepare their kit bag with the following items: hand sanitizer, Kleenex, personal ball pump, permanent marker, and a personal labeled water bottle. Hand sanitizer and Kleenex obviously speak for themselves, just for personal sanitation throughout. A personal ball pump. The one thing that we will provide at the first training session for all athletes in attendance is going to be a personal trading ball, which will be given to them. It's already sealed and ready to go. They just need to pump it up and inflate it. The permanent marker is for them to label it, just to make sure there's, again, no exchange of balls or equipment between players. And the personal water bottle is just to make sure athletes are hydrated throughout. There won't be access to a water fountain, a public water fountain, so it's really important that athletes arrive with enough water or Gatorade or sports drink to carry themselves for the 2-hour session. 2 hours before the training session, players will have to complete an attestation form. An attestation form, it's a quick process. It'll be administered over SurveyMonkey. So the day before, everybody will get an email from myself with the SurveyMonkey link, and there'll just be a variety of questions just outlining personal symptoms. If anybody is displaying or exhibiting symptoms, they will not be able to attend the session, obviously. An incompleted attestation form, in our mind, is the same thing as having symptoms. So if an attestation form is not completed, then athletes will not be permitted to train. The attestation form must be completed 2 hours before the session. That way we have the opportunity to review and monitor and check everybody off. A reminder will go out the morning of, if anybody's forgotten to do it, just a reminder to complete the form. And then the key part as well is all players will be sent a training plan outlined in advance of the session, so that when they show up, they're already aware of what's expected of them. They already know what the session's going to entail, and that's really going to limit the number of times you have to break down a session and call athletes in to talk to them or outline the session. We can show up ready to go and get right into things.
And just to add to that, Sean, for the players and parents, we're going to be videotaping the session that we will be using at the Oshawa Vikings Club on the Thursday night in advance. You'll get that videotape on the Friday with the session plan, so the athletes will know exactly what they're trying to achieve on the Sunday or Monday. And as Sean said, very little downtime, and we'll just be able to get to work maintaining physical distancing.
Mm-hmm. And like was included in that original presentation that was sent out, session 1, phase 1 will look very similar to the video that was prepared and included in that presentation with the athletes represented there. The other thing to just quickly note as well, so in addition to the personal ball that athletes will receive, we'll also be handing out face masks or face shields for athletes to wear. And these will only be worn during times when athletes are in common areas. So when they're going to get their water bottles, or after the next session when they're arriving for check-in. During training, athletes obviously won't be expected to wear them while they're performing their exercises. They'll simply keep those around their necks or in their pockets, and then have them ready to put on once they enter those common areas. The check-in procedure. So once athletes arrive, as you'll see later on, we've designated parking spots. There's 3 fields at Victoria Park, and each field has a designated parking zone. Athletes and parents will be asked to stay in that parking area in their car 15 minutes prior to the session starting, and then they'll be able to leave and start the check-in process. Like I said, at the first session, athletes will be given their Ontario Blues ball and face shield. That'll be set up when they arrive, and we're anticipating a contactless check-in. So check-in will occur verbally. So instead of coming in and checking your name off or logging in through the computer, we'll have our staff at the desk. The athletes will approach, maintaining physical distancing, confirm their name, and then be directed to their field. And the ball and face shield will already be laid out for them. In terms of the actual training session, so athletes will be grouped, assigned groups for the duration of the program that's being run, and they'll stay in these groups. That's just to avoid, again, unnecessary interaction between large groups. Where possible, players will be assigned to groups based on their club or region, and that's just, again, to make sure that we're keeping those groups as small as possible. And these groups can even be maintained at your local club training session to really keep those social circles tight and to avoid unnecessary interaction. All return to play protocol is going to follow the protocol that was put out by Rugby Ontario in accordance with the Ontario Ministry of Health. That document is available on the Rugby Ontario website. So if anybody's looking for further information on that, they can check that on the website. Additionally, you can just email myself and I'd be happy to forward you that document. But in that document, it outlines the full process, the full reporting material, and everything you could possibly need to educate yourself on the full and lengthy process that are in place. Again, as I mentioned, players will utilize the face shields when common areas. One of the questions we got a lot in the survey was, do I have to wear this during training? And no, that is not the case. You won't be training in the masks. The masks are just for when you enter those common areas. The last two pieces, players will not be able to share water bottle, again, as we noted before, and players will not be able to spit or blow their nose on the field. We understand it's sport and it can sort of be a habit, but we must ask that all athletes and even coaches are really diligent in being aware of that. And that's why we're asking you to bring Kleenex in your bag, just so that you can do that in the Kleenex and then dispose of it at home or separately. We just don't want to be doing that on the field in those common areas and exposing athletes to the potential for transmission that way. Another important note as well is that for the first two stages of the return to play process, spectators will not be permitted to stay on the premises. So parents or guardians or carpoolers, you're welcome to stay in your vehicle in your designated parking area, or you're welcome to drop your athlete off and then go and come back at the end of the session. But just to make sure that we're really diligent about in our process and really mitigating interactions at the session, we will not be allowing spectators.
Just once again, it's very important that the athletes before our first session watch the video that's the link that's included here, and then the text will also be sent. We've already reached out to all of our coaching staff, and we have about 70% engagement, which is outstanding. And the only time we didn't have engagement were because of medical reasons and the family situation. So outstanding work there. And I think the athletes and you as parents, Sean and I joke, we feel that we have a bit of credibility with you now after a number of years in the program. And I think you understand that the delivery is going to be at a very high level. We were very disappointed about this summer not happening because the last 2 years of hard work that our athletes have put in, we really felt this was going to be our summer to shine. But that's even more reason why we feel we have to continue with the hammer down. We can't relax now. We're turning our athletes into world-class players, and the design and execution of these sessions will be based on continuing that development. Thanks, Sean.
So looking at post-training and reporting procedures, at the conclusion of the training session, players and parents will immediately leave the field and follow the designated path back to their parking lot. We'll have signage up across all the fields and in the parking lots directing athletes where to go. It will be a regimented path, so it'll be very clear, and it's outlined in the map that we've included at the back of this, but you'll follow that path to training and then follow the exit path back to the parking lot at the end. If upon return home an athlete detects any symptoms of COVID-19, the process that is in place is for them to immediately contact Paul and myself. We will then start the reporting procedure internally and contact the COVID-19 safety coordinator for Rugby Ontario, who will then work with us to begin the tracing and tracking process. From there, all parties will be notified, so local clubs, so that everybody's aware and everybody's in the loop and operating from a position of strength in terms of understanding and information. We will then work with the athlete to ensure that the next steps are followed in terms of testing, and we will work with the immediate group that athlete was working with, notifying them and working with them through the next steps of the process as well. So these are just some simple FAQs that came in that we found consistently throughout the survey process. So we'll certainly go through these, and then again at the end we'll have an open question and answer where we can answer any additional questions. Like I said in the presentation, how groups be determined, as best as possible, groups will be based on club and region. Again, just to make sure that those social circles are tight and we're not loose with any of our screening process. What process is in place to minimize the risk of individuals experiencing COVID-19 symptoms engaging in the session? Again, like we said before, the attestation form will be in place where we'll be screening players prior to the session. Any athlete who displays any symptoms or checks off any symptoms of COVID-19 will not be able to engage in the session. And we'll work with that athlete to again make sure that the correct testing procedures are followed before they re-engage with the program. Can parents or players stay to watch? That was just addressed not during the first 2 sessions, but as we work through the return to play process and certain restrictions are lifted, then that's definitely something that we'll revisit and communicate to parents through. How will positive test be handled by us? So in the event that a positive test occurs, we will again immediately notify the Rugby Ontario COVID-19 manager, who will communicate to the home club of the athlete who tested positive and make sure that that club is in the loop and they can begin their tracing and tracking process. We will then do the same on our part, and any athlete who is engaged in that immediate group of 10 will be notified and alerted that they should begin seeking testing. That group will be removed from the training process until a negative test is confirmed, at which point they'll be able to re-engage with the program. When will masks be worn? Again, I've said a few times, but just so everybody's on the same page, masks will only be worn when athletes are in common areas, such as working with the athletic therapist, who themselves will be wearing a mask, or entering to their personal kit area where their water bottle's stored. That's where they'll wear their mask. Another really important question: do I need to be registered with a club to participate? Yes, as is always the case, and with every provincial program we've run, all athletes must be club registered. This is primarily an insurance purposes, to ensure that all players are covered under the Rugby Canada insurance policy. They must be registered with their clubs. Now, as you can imagine, this process has been very fluid and it's ongoing, and we're working through some issues at the moment with Rugby Canada and Sport Lomo in getting the registration platform up and running. We do anticipate some delays in terms of clubs need to get their sanctioning approved before registration is up and running, but we're working diligently with those clubs to get registration up and running so that everybody is able to register, participate with their club, and then participate in the high performance program. One measure that we've put in place to help athletes who are working with smaller clubs or clubs that may be further delayed in their sanctioning process or maybe not running registration this year, they'll be able to register through the Ontario Blues as a club. And what this will allow is for us to provide you with the necessary insurance coverage for the time being so that you can still engage in the provincial program. However, once your home club is up and running and their registration platform is live, we will transfer you over back to your club so that you're registered with your club and able to engage with them as well.
Now, for the athletes and parents, obviously you are really concerned about what is this going to look like. So phase 1, you've already seen, you saw the video. This is going to be our reintroduction to body movement. And I can guarantee that in that 90 minutes, our athletes will be physically challenged. They might not be doing pass catch, but we're going to find out how much fitness they did during this time off. Once we go to phase 2, and again, I believe we'll be going phase 2 on our second practice, because Durham Region is going to stage 3 return this Friday. So we'll be able to execute phase 2. Once we can do pass catch, that changes everything. So you'll see in the light blue, the extra exercises that we'll be able to do. Over this past 4 months, Sean and I have organized and executed 10 webinars with elite coaches from across Canada and the world for our high performance coaches. Their rugby IQ has massively increased since last year. On top of that, we've sat in over 20 webinars from around the world with Eddie Jones, the England coach, the Irish kicking and skills coach, the Scotland attack coach. We're looking at defense and attack patterns, kicking game, counterattack, and transition. All of these new concepts we've learned, we can execute in phase 2. So I want you to feel really confident, because we understand this is a big commitment. We're only doing one site so that we have full control over that one site. Usually in the summer, as you know, we go regional. We can't afford to make a mistake. We only have one chance at a first impression with this, and the work's been put in here. If we are lucky enough to get to phase 3 and phase 4, again, you'll see the additional exercises that we can do. But I'm telling you, I've ran provincial programs for a long time. I've been at a national championship and wasn't happy with my U18 boys team, and we'd had our captains run without a ball. So I totally understand manipulating what we have and how we can do it to maximize our gains, and our full staff is fully on board. And just so you know, with each program, we have 3 coaches engaged, confirmed already. So what you're used to, what the delivery is used to in the winter and the summer, will be the exact same this summer. Now, next steps. This is very important to us because, again, we have a long-term vision. Our goal for this summer, we really thought, and we thought it was very much achievable, that at the U18 Canada level, we would have had over 60% of our athletes from Ontario. Last year, we had 50. We easily anticipated a 10% increase in that. So we knew we had to run something this summer. And then our full plan is that we will execute the Winter Academy again, October through April, with ETS, exactly the way we've run it, tied in with Rugby Canada. And that's a full go, and that's dialed in, ready to go.
In terms of the sevens program, again, with some uncertainty existing in the future in terms of potential for travel and tours, there's still a very big question mark there. However, we do still fully anticipate to run a sevens program where we can focus on training and core skill development for sevens athletes. Again, what that looks like in terms of competition is an unknown, and that's something we won't know for a little while still, but we feel very confident in the fact that we can continue to work with these athletes and develop those core skills necessary for elite sevens performance. And there is the potential for regional competitions as well within the province or with neighboring regions where we can engage without having to tour to typical destinations. So we're very confident that we can still deliver that competition piece, but what that looks like is a little bit unknown at this time.
And again, for the athletes out there, you already know how important Sean and I feel competition and especially touring is. Touring is when we develop culture. The Blues program in the last 2 years has gone to Ireland, has gone to England, Nova Scotia. We have no problems with just touring within Canada. So years ago, they shut us down in Durham region from going overseas and being hosted in England. The next year, Uxbridge went to British Columbia, and it was one of the best tours I've ever been part of. And we are more than prepared as soon as we get the green light to get that going again, because we feel that's very important for development.
Absolutely. The final bit here too is the launch of the Ontario Blues Elite Academy. So like we've said, countless times before in the past, the success of the Rugby Canada Sevens Academy led by Sandro Fiorino and his staff has certainly spoken for itself, and the level and standard that he's created amongst our junior girls has been outstanding. So the focus for us in connection with the sevens program and the Winter Academy is still very much to maintain that relationship with Sandro, but now to create something similar for our junior boys where they can benefit from an elite training experience and a more hands-on training environment. So working with the Toronto Arrows and their staff, we're building a clear alignment and pathway through the Ontario Blues program into the Toronto Arrows, to this Elite Academy. And the focus of this program will be to work with a select group of athletes in correlation with our Winter Academy. They'll have additional training sessions, additional S&C, and additional opportunities to work hands-on with the Toronto Arrows and their academy staff. Really, really excited about this program. We feel that it finally puts us on equal footing with the pathway that the girls have had in place, and that has been proven to have been very successful over the past number of years. So we're very excited to see the fruits of this program and to launch it off the ground. More details on this program will be coming in the next few weeks as we continue to fine tune it and work with the Arrows on its delivery. But again, this is why we're really excited to get this program launched this summer, so that we can start working with athletes and building them up, so that when restrictions are lifted and we come into the fall and winter, we're ready to go, and we're running, not crawling into these programs.
And what's been really cool about this off time is a number of webinars that we've done with elite academies around the world. And the big focus is alignment. And this elite academy will be totally aligned with the Toronto Arrows, and everything that they do will be downloaded down to our other age grade programming with our Winter Blues Academy and Sevens program and 15s program. So we're now going to achieve total alignment from Rugby Canada, Arrows, Rugby Ontario, all age grade programs. I can't tell you how much work Sean has put into this, and working with Corey, Hector, the Arrows Academy director, Dave Butcher, and myself, and we're really excited about it because it's going to take us to that world-class level. Now, just with respect to logistics, Whitby's my hometown where I grew up, so very simply, you'll see that the boys will train for 2 hours, hour break, then the girls will train for 2 hours. We will flip the sessions between session 1 and session 2 each week, so that if you were 2 to 4 this Sunday, the next Sunday you'd be 5 to 7. You'll see the fields are designated, the parking lots where you'll park are designated, and then there'll be signage put up for entrance for each field. The check-in spots will be right at the entrance, and then when you go to the field, you'll see where your son or daughter has been assigned. So we'll have signage up for group 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a place for them to store their bags, and then you'll see if at any time somebody's injured, our injury assessment area is totally separate. We will take that athlete into that area, and they will be treated by a sports side athletic therapist. We'll have a sports side athletic therapist at each field. So we won't just have one for the whole area, there'll be one assigned for each field. Then when the session is over, signs will be placed for a common exit, and it would be group 5 would leave first, then group 4, then group 3, then group 1, then group 2. And they would go back to their parking lot and leave immediately. Now, all I can say, parents, is, again, I was in education for 30 years, did, I think, 17 tours with my group, and we had very, very strict rules about behavior and expectations. Now, having said that, I only had one issue in my whole career, because we've developed the culture now that I think our athletes understand how important this is. I also have a 16 and 19-year-old son and daughter, and I see the way they behave with their friends when they're in town. And that is not going to be tolerated at these sessions. It'll be a 2 strike we're at right now. 1 strike, you're out. So hugging, socializing in large groups close together, it just will not be on. And there won't be a learning phase here. Everybody knows what the expectations are, and we're going to deliver our part, and we're going to expect our athletes to follow suit. So what we really want you to communicate to your sons and daughters is that this is going to be awesome for our development, and we're going to do it properly.
The screen share now, and we can jump into some Q&As. We had a couple come through, so I'll just quickly pull them up. So we have a question here. How does the city manage the difference between phases? Toronto is allowing 10 people on a field. Is Whitby the same?
So what we're doing with respect to that, we're working one phase behind the way the province is doing it. So the province in Whitby will be going to stage 3. We could execute phase 2 for rugby. So that's our plan as of right now. All we can say is it could be fluid moving forward, but as of right now, our plan is phase 1 execution at our first session. Then we will execute phase 2 training at our second session, and then the rest will be played out depending on how the stages change within Durham Region and Ontario.
Just playing off that question here, Con. So we have an individual asking, when would phase 3 and 4 start?
And we don't know that.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be a very fluid situation, and something that we're consistently monitoring and working with the regional municipality, provincial government, our clubs, and it's something that will be very fluid, but we'll certainly be communicating throughout to all the parents and players to educate everybody on where we're at and what our next steps are.
Phase 2 training, we can have 100 people at the area, and we will go into using half fields. So as you can imagine, and I can't stress this enough, phase 2 session, we will do 90% of what I would normally do on a Thursday night session prior to a game on Saturday. We just would eliminate that 15 minutes of contact work. And like attack patterns, defensive patterns, like as long as we maintain physical distancing and we're disciplined, our expectation is to run an elite session.
Can you speak to the club registration issue and what approximate cost we should expect from the club registration? So I can speak to that one, Colin. So in terms of the club registration issue, it's simply just working with the clubs to get the proper sanctioning in place. So each club has a very strict and return to play process in place where they have to prove that they meet certain criteria and have done their due diligence and planning and preparation to administer a return to play program at their club. So right now we're working with all our clubs throughout that process, and once they've proven they meet that standard, then they're eligible for registration. Now, that being said, there are some issues with the registration platform itself, just with the fluidity, obviously this year not being a traditional registration process. We're working with Sport Lomo, the provider, to address some of the issues that have kind of come up as a response to the circumstances we're in right now. So we certainly think that these issues will be addressed in the near future, and that will, once clubs are sanctioned, we'll be good to go. So I think we'll see resolution to that in the very near future. In terms of the approximate costs we should expect, so in terms of the Rugby Ontario, Rugby Canada dues, those have been set for club registration, and those have been greatly reduced to obviously reflect the current circumstances we're in. So what I can do is share the link. It's public on our website. I don't want to give a number. I believe it's $20 each, but I could be wrong. So I'll be sure to share the link to the actual document so that everybody can review it themselves for the RORC dues. In terms of club dues, that's something we really can't speak to just because it's really up to the individual club. So depending on the type of programming they're running and what they're looking to do, that will reflect in the club dues that they charge. So in that instance, I would say once your club is up and running and sanctioned and open their registration, you could certainly reach out to their registrar for information on that, and I'm sure a lot of registrars will be preemptive and sending out information in the near future with that as well. When do we foresee test matches happening?
What a great question. Not in 2020. Now, again, I read in the Star today, I'm sure some of you did as well, great test results at Oxford University. You know, everybody across the world is full on board with this. Having said that, France is engaging in rugby. The English Premiership is engaging in rugby. Numerous professional leagues are engaging. And other provinces in Canada that have zero COVID, they may be engaging later on in the year. Perhaps that might be where we have to tour in late November. Who knows? But all I can tell you, and I think, again, we have the credibility with you, as soon as we can possibly do this, it will happen.
Question here. So will there be flexibility if an athlete can't attend one session? Can they attend the other?
No.
So I would assume that means speaking between guys and girls. So no.
Our groups would be set, and for tracking and tracing purposes, we can't have movement between groups.
If our club is not open for registration, should we register with the Blues or wait a week and see what happens? Since the first session is now delayed. So yeah, so certainly. So now that there is a bit of a delay, there is the opportunity that clubs may be up and running before our next session. So if that's the case, then 100% we encourage everybody to register with their local clubs. They'll have to register with their local club at some point, even if they register through us initially. In terms of that, if your local club is up and running before session 1, then yes, certainly register with them. If your local club isn't up and running, then we have that process in place where you can register through the Ontario Blues as a club. You'll be covered for all the necessary insurance that will enable you to train with us at our sessions. And then once your club is up and running, we'll transfer you over to your club so that you're registered under them moving forward. Looking to understand what the birth year ranges are for the age grade U18 girls and senior women. So the age grade breakdown is available on our website. Off the top of my head, the senior women or the U18 program would be athletes 2002 and 2003 would be comprised of the U18s. And then any athletes born after that, so 2001 and earlier, would be engaged in the senior women's program. How do we register our child for Blues insurance? So great question. So the Blues, we operate under the same through the same process as the clubs. So we are still ourselves waiting for access to the registration platform. We've been fully sanctioned. We've done our due diligence and we've got approval from Rugby Canada in terms of our COVID safety plan, risk mitigation. We've done all the same steps that a club would do in order to be sanctioned, but now we ourselves are just waiting for the registration platform to be up and running. So that itself was a large reason for the delay of the program from this week. But once the registration platform is up and running, then we'll be able to get everybody registered. Not to be confused as well, you are able to register for this specific program already. We've had a number of parents already register from the email that went out earlier today. So you can actually go ahead and register for the program itself. I know it's a bit confusing, but the insurance is a separate registration. Again, that's just something that's kind of out of our hands and really just tied to the registration platforms that are in place and available to us. Do we have an idea of numbers yet? So what I can say is the response so far has been overwhelmingly positive. I think by the time I log off, we'll probably be at 50 or 60 registered. But I think we're planning on running full stop based on the response from the surveys, as well as anecdotally just talking to members of the community and players engaged in the program. We're expecting around 150 athletes to be engaged in the program. Another question here, what about new players? So that's another great question. So in terms of the process right now, we're prioritizing returning athletes and athletes who have previously been engaged in the provincial program, as there is a limit to how many players we have in the program for stages 1 and 2. So we're prioritizing space for returning players. However, after the initial registration period, if there's spots available, we'll be working with coaches, high performance coaches to identify players outside of the program who are interested in engaging. And that being said, if you're aware of players who are able to compete at this level and have the potential to play at the provincial level, then we encourage you to reach out and connect us with them, and we'll start that application process with them and keep them informed as we move through the next couple stages.
If you do have players like that, if you could have them communicate with their coach, and then their coach can contact us and give that formal recommendation. So we would like a formal recommendation from a coach saying that the player is an elite caliber athlete and has potential to represent Ontario.
Slightly unrelated question, but how many kids do you foresee being in the Elite Academy? So like I said, we'll be releasing much more information on that program in the near future, but that's going to be reserved for a select number of athletes. So we're anticipating a group between 24 and 36 in size. Again, as we release more information, you'll understand why it's a smaller group. But again, we're really focused on working with elite athletes and creating a mirror model to what Sandro's created for the junior girls program, and working with creating a best on best environment where our top athletes can work together and strive to develop to the next stage.
And another exciting piece from that is that it will be regionally based out of Kingston, Whitby, and Guelph. So we'll be able to cover a good portion of the province, and eliminate transportation. And that extra training session would more likely be on like a Wednesday night. So it wouldn't affect weekend rugby commitments.
Last question that's come through here from is the Rugby Canada Development Academy the same as the Elite Arrows Academy? So it's not the same program. The Rugby Canada Development Academy is run by Rugby Canada and Sandro Fiorino. We're very much engaged in that program and active stakeholders in it, but there will be separate programs. They're just modeled the same. We've seen the success that Sandro and his staff have had in developing players through that program. So we're simply replicating that model and making that available to our junior boys. The reason it's not through Rugby Canada is just simply due to government funding. That program's eligible for certain funds through the Olympic program that our boys aren't at the moment. But the great opportunity for our boys is that they have a professional outfit in their backyard. So while our girls are fully engaged with Rugby Canada, we can tap into the Arrows for that development.
All right, parents and players, thank you very much for coming tonight. Really looking forward. I'm sorry we can't start on Sunday. We were really excited. But you know what? It's been 4 months. If it's got to be one more week, so be it. And it'll be the Monday of the long weekend, not the Sunday. So you still get a bit of a long weekend. Sean, do you have the last comments?
Yeah, no, just if anybody has any more questions or anything pops into mind after the call today, then obviously feel free to email Con or myself, and we'll get back to you right away. Otherwise, like Con said, much appreciated. Thank you guys for taking the time to jump on today, and we couldn't be more excited to get back into the swing of things in a week or so.
Great. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.